Good morning. It's already getting to be the end of March. Weekly price changes this week. Actually, the market seems like it's lost a bit of its direction this week. May corn was up 6 cents, but May soybeans were down 7. Minneapolis and Chicago wheat, Chicago up a penny in the May contract, Minneapolis up 3 cents. So a lot of uh, with confusion, maybe would be the best word in the market right now. April crude oil up $1.37 this week, kind of defying its recent trend. April gold was up $21, made a new 6,000 year all time high again this week. The dollar actually has been in decline, but this week up 0.379. So a lot of misdirection, if you want to call it that, in the marketplace. You look at the charts, we obviously have had a very sharp decline in corn, a decent recovery. I guess we sold a fair amount up here, like 75% of a crop. We sold another 25% here. So with these tariffs, trade wars coming on with some of our major trading partners, we're looking for the market to continue this weakness. But actually, look at how much weakness we had recently. We're kind of consolidating in this area before we continue to go lower. But I'm sure that a lot of cash sales of corn have dried up. And that might be the good news for those of you who have set futures prices like we did. The basis is probably going to improve as the cash sales and the flow of grain just slows way down. And of course, I think that's going to happen. In the soybean market, kind of a mixed week this week as well, kind of a sideways type trend. But obviously, the trend is down, just like corn, just not as dynamic as corn. Of course, soybeans didn't go up as dynamic. Corn went basically to new recent highs for the year and then retreated. Soybeans didn't do that. We're just kind of sitting here in neutral. I think once this trade war situation is over, especially for soybeans, the one with China, then the soybean market could go up a fair amount, particularly if we shift 3 to 5 million acres away from corn this year, like most of the trade expect. So weather-wise, we've got pretty warm temperatures forecast here the 8 to 14 day and even the next week in most of the United States. That southern part especially where they're going to begin planting. It'll likely be an early start to the spring planting in the country. The northern plains being the coolest yet, but actually it's very likely we could start the planting progress early for spring planting crops, particularly in the southern part of the United States. Wheat market's kind of sideways this week, actually gaining a little bit, pretty negligible amounts, but obviously wheat's kind of following soybeans with this trade war threat holding prices down. Once again, we'll probably see that continued weakness as we go forward until we start solving making deals on trade, which will probably improve the U.S. situation and also the export situation for grains, which we export a lot to our major trading partners. So you look at spring wheat, very similar pattern to the winter wheat. Maybe a little more support in the winter wheats though lately. Look at this next week forecast. The rainfall, there is rain all around the winter wheat country, but this primary winter wheat country staying relatively dry for the next week. But all that rain has to do is shift a little bit westward, and all of a sudden you're going to see some decent precip in here. So the market is waiting for that to happen, but so far it has not happened. And you look forward into the precip outlook in the 8 to 14 day, you still have a relatively dry forecast in that region. Of course, wet everywhere else. That is supporting the winter wheat market, and of course has led to recent strength. It is pretty critical that winter wheat get rain in the next month. That's pretty much when the crop is made. Here's an interesting development. Crude oil started to go sharply higher, kind of Joe Biden, when he left the office in the end of December, he did a lot of things to kind of make that Ukraine war continue forever. And Ukraine basically banned their $1 billion. They were getting $1 billion to transport Russian natural gas across the country and energy and some pipelines, and they ended that, and crude oil went up $10 on that. But with Trump in office, he seems very intent on ending the Ukraine war, and we have retreated all of that $10 gain all the way back here from the time he basically took office. So energy prices are much, much cheaper than they've been, almost at the yearly lows. We've gone from the yearly highs when Trump took office to the yearly lows in just basically 2 months. Astounding change. And the costs of energy have gone down a terrible, significant amount. I think we're going to come down here and test the 64 area. But it looks to me like Ukraine leaders, Zelensky and his cabal, are pretty much trying to put the kibosh on any peace agreement. So Russia and the United States agreed to play nice. We're talking about resumption of normal diplomatic ties and resumption of economic ties, that basically some of those sanctions being taken off. And actually, the only country not participating in this peace agreement is Ukraine. So I think they're going to create as many problems as they possibly can. I think that's pretty clear. So I think that if we get down into the 64 area, we'll probably have to buy some of our energy needs for the year. That is the yearly low. And there might be some difficulty. I think they may have to elect, a new president. Russia says they won't negotiate with Zelensky anyway because he's not a legitimate president. He canceled elections. So he's going to probably have to have a vote, and it might take a lot longer to resolve that Ukraine conflict. So I think this is a good place, 64, to buy some energy needs for the coming year. What a dramatic improvement we had in that energy costs as far as agriculture. At a very good time in spring. This is a market that is defying gravity, basically. All the other markets are tending to go lower. Look at gold making new highs this week, breaking above the old recent high, and significantly above this $2,800-$2,900 area. Wow, it is astounding what the gold has accomplished. And in spite of a slowing economy in the U.S., a sagging stock market, sagging commodities almost everywhere, except I guess the price of eggs. Even eggs have dropped lately. It is very interesting to see gold running to new highs like this. I thought if we could sell the gold, but actually I don't like this trend. It's obviously higher. I think we're going to retrace back to this mark. I've got a short position up here, but I am not confident that gold is done. Maybe all the Ukrainian people who have been, it's a very corrupt country. We've been sending $300 billion and Europe sending billions of dollars there. I'm sure there's a lot of money moving from Ukraine. It looks like we're going to have new leadership elected. There's probably a lot of money moving, and gold is the best way to move a lot of money. One brick now is worth $310,000. One brick. You could haul $3-4 million in a briefcase. It is astounding what the price of gold has done. So the last chart I'm showing is the dollar index. We've had a significant decline in the dollar index. It rose sharply, but the opposition to we have a current Republican president, House, Senate, the small majorities there, but the resistance to that is significant. So we're seeing this dollar declining significantly. The U.S. court systems are basically holding up the elected leaders. And so it is a very interesting thing in the United States, that dollar obviously weakening a lot because of the kind of an illegitimate government activity right now, mainly coming from the legal side. So I want to point out a couple of things. We're basically sitting in neutral, kind of in neutral in the markets this week. We have downtrends in all of the grains, and because of the looming trade war threat, most countries' leaders seem reluctant to settle it, but really the United States has all of these countries, Mexico, China, Canada, really over a barrel. We import way more than we export from them. They're going to have to agree to our terms, and our terms are going to improve grain outlook. But until that happens, the grains are probably going to head lower. Gold is at running to new all-time highs, and most of the other commodities are heading lower. You wonder what direction that's going to take. Maybe we'll get a little more direction as we come up to the coming week, but it certainly looks like these trends are going to continue until something causes it to change. Weather is becoming a major factor as we get into the end of March, beginning of April. Weather looks so far cooperative, except for hard red winter wheat area. They need rain, and they need it in the next month in order to avoid significant yield losses. It's a lot to think about. I hope you have a great weekend and good marketing.